Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wellness with EAC. I'm Nicole Guanzura. I am your host. I am a mama, a wife. I am super passionate about women's ministry and also happen to work in the early career development space. I am overjoyed to be back with you for another episode. It's been so much fun being on this ride with y'all for the last couple of months, so let's keep it going. And as usual, you hear this spiel from me all the time, but I get so excited about having guests on because, as I've assured you before, no one comes and guests on this show that has not been vetted, that is not truly authentic to their craft, that is not really excited that once we get off this platform, if you reach out to them, you're going to get the same energy that they give you on this show. So today's guest is no different. I am so excited for you all to hear from this mighty, mighty, powerful woman of God. She is so many things, but I'm just going to highlight really quickly that she is the founder of Living Chronic Faith, and she is a board certified life coach at Arise. She's going to tell you a little bit more about what she's doing, tell you a little bit more about her story. So I'm going to turn it over to our guest. Welcome to the show, Allison Hampton.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I am honored to be here.
I am so glad you're here. I mean, we talk all the time and we regularly chat, and within the community, that we met in, it's just common conversation. And I hope there are some of those community members, our Epic Fab Girl community members that are checking in, Living Chronic Faith, everybody checking into this conversation that already knows you and loves you. So it's a privilege for you to now come onto this platform so that my audience can get to know just how amazing you are. So, Allison, tell us a little bit more about you. What's the story? Tell us a little bit more about who you are, your background, and how you got to where you are today.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, allow me to say that I'm very proud of you and what you're doing on your platform and how you're allowing God to use you and work through just your area of gifting and expertise to tell these stories and encourage people. So thank you for that.
Amen. Thank you.
I think for me, I've kind of found myself where I am in a similar way. It's been very organic. My journey has been one of purpose that has been discovered, if you will, through my process. So in 2010, I was diagnosed with lupus along with fibromyalgia and a number of other diagnoses, which I will not bore you with. But suffice to say that there's a lot happening under the surface here. And I got to see the faithfulness of God up close and personal in ways that I hadn't before, even though I grew up in church, right? And I did all the church things and I knew all of the things to say and do at the right times. I was involved in all the things and participating in ministry, but life kind of began for me after diagnosis. And I think that that's backwards for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Diagnosis for a lot of people means, okay, I'm looking at the end. But it really, in a lot of ways, was a new beginning for me because I got to really encounter who God is and who he wanted to be for me, but also what I have to offer the world. And it has taught me that a diagnosis and any kind of difficulty are not necessarily things that disqualify you from a life of purpose and from the destiny that you were ordained to experience and to live out. It's usually those things that make us different from everyone else that actually qualify us to do the thing we're called to do. And so that is where I am. So I get to serve people who are living with chronic diagnoses, as well as the people that support them through Living Chronic Faith. We are an online faith-first community. And
Mm-hmm.
so that means that all of our programming is offered virtually, but we also get to offer it at no cost. And so that looks like workshops, that looks like
Mm-hmm.
exercise sessions that are seated and low impact. That is a annual conference that we have. Everything
Mm-hmm.
is virtual, but we also produce virtual productions. So we've done a couple of theatrical productions
Mm-hmm.
um, that our members and guests are involved in. They're able to play their parts remotely.
Mm-hmm.
And through technology, we're able to compile a cohesive project. And it really is just an amazing community to be part of.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I get to serve them, I also receive so much from them and from their experience. And that has really encouraged and pushed me to pursue a doctorate in pastoral counseling, just to
Mm-hmm.
be able to add another level of support, but also to produce the research that will help other people understand the lived experience of people living with chronic illnesses. And
Mm-hmm.
in that process, the life coaching came in when I realized that so many people are navigating chronic illness without having someone to talk to that experiences life in similar ways.
Right.
And so throughout these 14 years since my initial diagnosis, I
Mm-hmm.
have been blessed and graced to do a number of things that really on paper I shouldn't have been able to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to write and produce plays. I've been able to write and publish 2 books. I've been able to complete a master's degree. And
Mm-hmm.
I look at that and I say, okay, God, so what you're showing me is even with a major life challenge, you can still find a way forward. You can still continue to produce
Yes.
while you're navigating your way to a solution. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as a life coach, I pursued the certification because I wanted to be able to help other people do that same thing. You know, people say, write what you know, do what you're passionate about. Well,
Right.
I'm passionate about purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I'm passionate about the fact that no matter what it is that looks like or feels like a limitation to you, it's not a limitation to God, and it doesn't have to be a limitation for you. And
Mm.
so I get to share that with people in so many different ways and arenas. And that is what brings me joy. And that is what I'm passionate about.
I really appreciate that so much because it's so important, right? And living with and beyond the diagnoses, right? And not necessarily feeling like you always need to identify with what the diagnosis says and instead
Right.
identify with who God says you are and
Absolutely.
allow Him to do only what he can do through your life, right? For some people, like you, I love especially what you said, that there was just this new beginning with the diagnoses. Whereas on the other side, people are like, well, what am I going to do now? My life is practically over. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do that. But here you are just blossoming and thriving, not without challenges, right?
Mm.
Not without at all, but through it all, you are still steadfast in your faith and going to try um, your hand at so many incredible things that you just highlighted and shared. And so I really appreciate that. And I hope that for everybody that's listening right now, whether it is diagnoses, that you think is just now going to limit your life in certain capacity, right? Or maybe it's a job that you're just getting into and feeling like, you know what, I don't know, this doesn't even align with my qualifications. This is not what I'd hoped for, not what I dreamed. But there is hope on the other side. And what you do in the midst of that place you're in is going to directly affect the outcome of what you do on the other side of it. And if you never get on the other side of it, you still need to make the most of what you're going through. So I appreciate that and love getting to know a little bit more about you and what you're passionate about. Now, thinking about this season of life, right? There's some really cool things that you're doing, some amazing things that are coming up. You're about to be Dr. Hampton soon. I mean, can't wait to celebrate all of that. But as you're sitting here right now today, what would you say you are most proud of in this season of life?
I didn't quit.
Mm.
That is one of the things that was in my hands to do.
Hmm.
That was something that I got to make that choice.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful to God, for the grace to continue. There are a lot of moments, to be very honest with you, there are still moments when
Mm.
it just feels like too much, right? It
Yeah.
feels like the symptoms, the challenges, all the maintenance, all the things that you have to do to keep
Hmm.
going. And I feel like that can resonate with people in different life experiences.
Right.
It's the mom with all the kids. It's, the CEO with all the responsibilities. It's all the people who are dealing with a lot of moving parts in their life.
Hmm.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I am a firm believer that it's always darkest before the dawn.
Mm.
And I mean, it's a proven fact. If you look out the window, you'll see that as soon as it gets as dark as it can possibly get, that very next moment, you start to see a little bit of light creeping through.
Yes.
And there have been so many times when I have been so overwhelmed, uh, feeling like I did not have what it took to go one more day.
Mm.
And you find a way, you find that strength, you find the grace to just
Hmm.
go on. And then you realize, if I had given up when I thought about giving up,
Yeah.
I would have missed that sunrise. I would have missed the onset of the next beautiful that God had planned for me. Whatever that
Mm.
beautiful thing is, whatever that joy is, don't give up before you get there. It's literally
Yeah.
closer than you think. It is within reach. There is a light at the tunnel. It is not an oncoming train. I don't care what people say. There is
Yes.
a light at the end of the tunnel, and you have the strength. What I share with people a lot
Hmm.
is that you're not required to have all the answers.
Mm.
You're not required to have the solution for the next 6 or 7 days.
Yeah.
If you can hold on for the next minute,
Mm.
and if a minute is too ambitious, hold on for the next second and take
Yeah.
it second at a time. Just get through this moment,
Mm.
get to the next one, and deal with that one when you get there. But don't put that pressure on yourself to have it all figured out.
Right.
We can't. There are too many unpredictabilities in life to
Hmm.
put that pressure on ourselves to try to be, clairvoyant, or to try to be, God in that
Hmm.
situation. We cannot. But what we can do is put it in his hands.
Yes.
And so that for me is the thing that I am very grateful for, that in those moments when it was so challenging and so oppressive,
Mm.
I didn't quit. And now here I am in a position where I get to help other people hold on for another moment until they can see the sunrise.
That's it. That's it, because there's always joy that is going to come in the morning. That there's no train that's coming to hit you.
Right.
That's light coming to show you that what
That's
darkness covered, light will reveal
absolutely.
exactly what is on the other side for you. And I think, one of the things we talk so much about at EAC in general is when you are looking at your entire well-being and you're reviewing and reflecting on your career, your job, whatever stage of life you're in at school, it's really important to do that check-in with your mental health. It's really good to have somebody that you can lean in on, that you can lean on when things are going tough. That person who's going to help to remind you, right, that there is joy on the other side, that there is something good on the other side. When everything else is like, no, but I didn't manage to balance it all. I didn't manage to do this thing. I didn't manage to do all of these things. It actually reminds me of when I left my full-time job,
Mhm.
and I was so burnt out. I was so stressed. I was struggling with postpartum, and I was just, as my husband described me, just a walking zombie.
Wow.
I would just go to work, smile all day, get off of work with my baby strapped to me most days, get off of work and still feel the pain because it was only a few short months after birth. So still feel the discomfort and
Mhm.
just go through in this fog, and you go on this autopilot because
Autopilot.
how dare you take a break? How dare you walk away from something, right? It is so difficult. But that decision, that encouragement of people who God sent to essentially give me permission, I like to say, to
Yes.
take a break. Now, 3 years later, there is so much goodness on the other side.
Yeah.
So much goodness. But I couldn't see it in that moment. All I knew was all I knew.
Yes.
And what I didn't know, I didn't know.
And I think that that is part of the value of platforms like this, is
Mm-hmm.
that we do get to share that information with people. It is so
Mm-hmm.
important. I see people all the time who are at that place where they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do next. There's so many things
Yes.
that I'm dealing with, and I'm just overwhelmed. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the first questions I ask them is, what does your self-care routine look like?
Yeah.
And 90% of the time, the answer is, what's that? Well, I can
Yeah.
tell you what self-care is. Self-care is a non-negotiable. Self-care is so
Mm-hmm.
important. Rest is a priority that we all have to engage in, and that we all have to make sure that we're focusing on. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because if we don't, we are going to absolutely crash and burn.
Yes.
It is designed to be part of the natural rhythm of our lives. The
Mm-hmm.
same way that we wake up every day, we go to sleep every night, hopefully. The same way that we eat 3 meals a day, hopefully.
Right.
Rest has to be part of that rhythm, and it's more than just going to bed at night.
Mm.
There are so many different types. Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, an
Mm-hmm.
incredible doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and author as well. She talks about the 7 different types of rest that we all need, and they include
Okay.
social, mental, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
creative. And I think it's so important to think about unplugging,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to sometimes unplug from all the responsibilities, all the have tos. There has to be a time where we can separate ourselves from that so that we can just be. We do
Right.
so much doing, but we're not made to be human doings. We're human beings. And so
Yes.
we have to find that place where we can just be, just get in contact with ourselves for a little while. Because if we don't, we'll lose ourselves. And then if we do that, what is our compass? How do we navigate
Mm-hmm.
anything in life? How do we then apply our morals and our principles and our values if we're out of touch with who we are? And so it's so
Yeah.
important. I believe that restoration
Mm-hmm.
is impossible without rest. You can't even spell it without rest.
You can't.
And so that should tell us something about the significance of that unplugging, but also plugging in, getting poured back into. I call it the Walmart principle.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I've shared this with you before, but like I see us all as Walmart shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And all day long, every day, people are reaching up on that shelf to get what they need.
Yes.
And at some point, that last person is going to reach up on that shelf, and the shelf is going to be empty. And then
Yes.
what value do we add? What do we bring to the
Mm.
table? But just like Walmart, at the end of the night, they bring in their night crew to restock those shelves. And that is
Yes.
the purpose of rest in our lives, is for us to let those shelves have an opportunity to get restocked. Because if not, somebody's going to reach up on that shelf for what they need, or we will reach up on that shelf for what we need for ourselves, and it's not going to be there.
That's it.
And then how do we show up in the world? What do we have to offer? We cannot
Mm.
produce with that depletion. Self-depletion is not a virtue. Can I say that again?
Mm.
Self-depletion is not a virtue. And
Mm.
unfortunately, society has taught us that, you have to grind, you have to work, you have to keep going, you got to stay motivated, you got to push, you got to do more before 6 a.m. than most people do all day.
Right.
At the same time, you have to find that space to really be who you are in this world, because we were all created unique. And
Yes.
what God made us to be is necessary in this world. There is not another Nicole. There is not
Mm-hmm.
another Allison. And so we have to be the best version of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
because we add something to the recipe that this world is. And
Yes.
without us, the recipe won't come out right.
I love that. I love that. It's so, and the visual, right? You can't help but just visualize those shelves, and not only visualize those shelves, you've got to remember when those shelves are empty, they need to be cleaned. The
Hmm.
screws need to be tightened. You need
Yes,
some WD-40 or something to just oil them as well. Or if their
absolutely.
wheels need to be set in or locked for them to stay in position. There's
Yes.
so many tweaks, and you can't do that when you're not getting enough rest. You can't get a restock on an unsteady shelf. It's dangerous. It'll fall.
It literally is. That is the part of the 23rd Psalm where it
Mm,
says, His rod and his staff comfort me.
yes.
When you look at how a shepherd tends a sheep, they
Mm,
use that rod not necessarily for correction, but when the sheep come into the fold at night, they lower that rod so the sheep have to crawl in under their on their bellies
yeah.
so that the shepherd can inspect and see
Mm,
if there's any kind of parasite, any kind of wound that needs to be treated, any of those things. It's that time when he takes that moment to really care for their individual needs. All
right.
day long they're a flock, but in that moment, they're an individual sheep and they're
Mm.
getting tended to and having all their needs met by their shepherd. And that's part of that process. And it's so important.
That is incredible. Thank you for sharing that. And you've had to recently remind me of some of those similar principles and just check in with me about my self-care when I start to forget, right? And we release some mindset checks as well that I'll link in the show notes that are meant to remind you of these things, right? And meant to give you some words of wisdom and affirmation if you start to forget just who you are, what you're capable of. So don't forget to grab those in the show notes. And so, Allison, just, thinking about your journey to date, you shared so many bits and pieces of your journey. And it's just been this beautiful evolution, right? This mosaic that the Lord has been creating into this beautiful image, right? Is there anything as you're reflecting on your journey that you would do differently?
I really think that the thing that I would do differently, especially in my younger years,
Mm-hmm.
is prioritize rest,
Mm,
slowing down. There was so much motivation, but even pressure
yeah.
to achieve, to accumulate, to progress.
Mm-hmm.
And along the way, you miss a lot of those little moments.
Yeah.
You miss some of those opportunities for interactions that are meaningful, those times to make memories. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it said, when you get to the end of life, nobody ever says, "Oh, I wish I had worked more."
Never.
And I can wholeheartedly agree with that. I look back at my life and I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I've had.
Mm,
I've been very blessed to have my dream jobs, plural, right?
mm.
But even in that process, I could have benefited from slowing down a little more. And I'm
Yes.
thankful for the family that I have. I'm thankful for, the experiences and the memories that I've had, opportunities to make. But there was more time to slow down.
Mm.
There was more time to engage. There was time to ask one more question or to spend one more minute on the phone. And because of the nature of where I was working and what I was doing,
Mm-hmm.
there was always a sense of urgency,
Yeah.
you know, and you've got to get to the next thing and the next thing. And I would love to have had the presence of mind to
Mm.
just be in the moment a little bit more.
That is the theme that has been ringing through this podcast.
Mm,
Just take your time on several episodes. Just taking the time to smell the roses,
yes,
taking the time to savor the moment. Don't rush through the checklist. You're going to get to the bottom of
you're
it.
going to get to it.
You're going to get to it. Or you're going to get to it and realize, oh, you know what? Then what? What am I going to do now? And, or sometimes what often happens, especially in the world of work, is you get through, I want to get through this career and do this and do that. And then you get to the top of what you thought would be your mountaintop. and you
Yes.
still feel dissatisfied.
Hmm.
You have peaked at that salary and you still aren't happy with it.
Yes.
Why? Because you have been lacking that discipline of slowing down,
Yes.
that discipline of contentment,
Hmm.
that discipline in just stopping to just do a quick check of, okay, where am I right now? How long do I need to stay here right now?
Yeah.
How long do I need to embrace what's going on right now? So I think it's really powerful that you're just sharing that reflection. And as we're thinking about, priorities, things we are reflecting on, looking just at our journeys and some of this advice that you've been able to share, could you share with our audience, what does wellness mean to you?
Absolutely. Wellness, and this is something that I like to talk about a lot in the space
Mm-hmm.
of chronic diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we we look for physical healing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's certainly something that God is still doing. That's certainly something that is possible.
Amen.
Also, not negating that at all. In addition to that, I believe that it is a priority of God for us to walk in wholeness.
Mm.
And wholeness is not just a physical healing, because you can be healed, you can be asymptomatic,
Yeah.
right? They can cross off all the diagnoses on your chart and you still not be whole.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that that should be the pursuit, is that we find ourselves literally pursuing all the things that make us who we are, which means
Mm.
that we have to go on that journey of discovering all the things that we are. There are
Right.
so many pieces to the puzzle that make up who we are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And it bears addressing all of those pieces in turn so that we can make sure that we are fulfilled and that we're healthy in all those spaces. And so wellness means evaluating your relationships.
Mm.
How's that going? Evaluating your goals, your dreams. How's that going? You
Mm-hmm.
know, what is your career looking like? Is that in a place where you're getting fulfillment? Or
Mm.
is it a place that is draining and exhausting you?
Mm-hmm.
What is your physical well-being like? What are you doing to make sure that you're well? Are you
Mm.
sleeping enough? Are you sleeping when it makes sense for you to sleep? Are you eating what is healthy for you? Are you
Yes.
exercising in a way that is not damaging your body, but that is supporting your wellness? And it's looking at all those things. And of course, there has to be that spiritual element, right? Checking in
Mm.
with, the God who created you, making sure that you are in alignment with your values
Mm-hmm.
and that you are living the life that when you go to sleep at night, you sleep with peace because you
Yes.
don't have those regrets of
Mm.
making choices that maybe you felt coerced into making or that you felt like someone else expected you to make.
Right.
What are the things that align with who you are meant to be?
Mm.
And are you pursuing that? So for me, wellness is a comprehensive pursuit
Mm-hmm.
of checking in with every area, like I said, all the pieces of your puzzle to make sure that you are addressing all those things honestly and diligently and intentionally.
Mm. That is so powerful. And it resonates so deeply with episode 2 we did of the podcast, which was, redefining and reframing wellness, because we're
Mhm.
looking at all 8 facets of well-being, of wellness, according to the NIH, and they cover so many of those things that you just said. It's
Yeah.
all encompassing. Your wellness is beyond just your physical health. It's beyond just your mental health. It's got the financial, it's got the vocational, it's got the spiritual. I mean, there's so many pieces. So you just captured it so well. And I love that, you were able to take folks back a little bit. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about or when we define those, go back to episode 2, redefining and reframing wellness, and then jump back to this conversation. Um, Allison, there is so much that we could continue to talk about. And I really just appreciate what you've been able to just kind of share insight into so deeply and so openly and so honestly. And I really for our audience to stay in touch with you and get connected with Living Chronic Faith, get connected with life coaching through Rise, and, you know, find where that best opportunity is, to really just get connected with a community that they can build trust and connect with others and be in familiar spaces or new spaces that they didn't even know they needed. So, how do people stay connected? One, and is there anything specifically that's just kind of coming up that should be on folks' radars that they can just dig a little deeper with you?
I appreciate that, and I would love to connect. For anyone who is looking for coaching support, we are on Instagram at Arise Life Coaching LLC. We're
Mm-hmm.
also on the web at ariselifecoachingllc.com.
Mm-hmm.
For those who would like to get connected with a community of believers, a faith-first community, of people who are supporting others living with chronic conditions, and that is chronic pain, chronic illness. It can be anything from alopecia, asthma, MS, lupus, whatever, everything in between. We
Mm-hmm.
provide support for that. And that is at Living Chronic Faith on Instagram or livingchronicfaith.com. And you can get plugged in. We'll make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you're getting all the information about upcoming events. And to your second question, we are absolutely looking forward to a virtual summit that
Mm-hmm.
has been absolutely supported, and um, I don't know even the words to say how much support and how grateful we are for the
Mm-hmm.
support of Janssen Pharmaceuticals and the Community Foundation of New Jersey. They have offered and provided support for our upcoming event. It's a virtual summit, and it is
Okay.
called My Body, My Friend.
Mm.
And it stems from an experience that I had where I was going through a number of pain issues,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like my body was working against me.
Mm.
And as you know, with chronic autoimmune illnesses, your immune system literally is fighting your body. And so
Mm.
it feels like that emotionally sometimes as well. And God corrected my language, and He reminded me, this is the same body that has been fighting for you all this time.
Yes.
Before you even understood what your symptoms were, before you had a diagnosis, and before you began treatment for anything, your body was still keeping you going.
Amen.
And once that revelation had been downloaded, it changed the way that I thought about my body. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, my body has been a great ally for me, and I haven't always been the best ally for my body.
Right.
And so, with this opportunity, we get to share that message that your body really is your friend, and that how
Mm-hmm.
you take care of it and how you see it matters. And so, we're going to have a number of speakers. We're going to have keynotes. We're going to have breakout sessions. We're going to have a prayer room. We're going to have vendors, all the things. And it's going to be a phenomenal day. It is
Mm.
virtual, it is free, and it is available for whoever is interested in reimagining their relationship with their bodies. And so we invite everyone. You can find out
Mm-hmm.
more information at livingchronicfaith.com. So thank you for um, giving the opportunity to share that.
Of course, it's such an important event that's coming up, and so it will be really wonderful. And I'll share the registration link in the show notes. So if you're watching on Spotify, the link is going to be there. If you're watching, listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube Music, we will have those show notes. And then, of course, if you are seeing this on LinkedIn or on YouTube, there will be multiple opportunities for you to register. On our website, we'll also add the link. So you can't turn around and say you never knew where to register. This is such an important event coming up, and I really appreciate you sharing. And so you all know now how to get in touch with Allison and just really get connected with these wonderful communities. And also, Allison has a fantastic YouTube channel that I enjoy watching.
Thank you.
And she speaks on so many topics. And Allison, I believe the YouTube, is that under Living Chronic Faith?
It is. It absolutely.
Okay. All right, so go search up Living Chronic Faith on YouTube, and just that's another way to stay connected with her and just get a visual. If you just enjoyed what you heard, just wait till you're able to just continue in community with her. So, Allison, God is doing a good work in you, and I am so proud of everything that you are doing, and it has been such a privilege and an utmost honor to have you on the show today.
I have been delighted to be here. And as you know, I will always support what you are doing and what God is doing in and through you. Thank you again for the opportunity to be on your platform, but more importantly, what you're doing to encourage and uplift people everywhere.
Absolutely. Amen. I receive that. Thank you. And thank you all for listening. Until next Wednesday, take care and be well. Really excited to hear what you thought about this episode. And don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment on all the platforms. We are checking. Love connecting with you and hearing your feedback. So until next Wednesday, take care, everyone.